I hate that people take my kindness for a weakness. I was swimming with the sharks, took a dive off the deep end. I be moving different. I ain't had no kids that on me deep and take a walk up in my shoes with to survive through the weekend. I hate that people take my kindness for a weakness. I was swimming with the sharks, took a dive off the deep end. I be moving different. I ain't had no kids that on me deep and take a walk up in my shoes with to survive through the weekend.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Cannon, and we are back. We got another double header today. We got my man Slick Vic Low. Listen, man, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, but I just wanted to say it was a pleasure meeting you at the venue. Y'all tore down DBL. I'm excited to hear what you got coming. And for those who don't know, they had an event called DBL in your house. Was it part 2?
Part 2, live at the Portal.
Yeah, man. Shout outs to the Portal family. Tell everybody about yourself, man.
Yeah, Slick Vic Low, aka Lyrical Leviathan, aka Slangston Hughes, aka Thelonious Coltrane, aka Art Vandelay, or Victor Franz Rogers II, which also sounds made up, but that's like the Clark Kent to my Superman. And in this incarnation right now, and the project is coming out this week, I'm Slick Vic Low, the original.
That's what I like to hear, man. That's my man said Slangston Hughes.
That's me too.
Yeah, I like that. I ain't gonna lie, I like that one. I was just like, yo, that's dope.
On Rick and Morty, I'm like the Council of Vicks.
Oh yeah. I saw that episode. So question: How did you get your name? Were you always Slick Vic Low
initially,
or how did you come into the rap game? You gotta give me the origin story.
Yeah, the origin story, right? The lore. Not initially. My government name is Victor Franz Rogers II. But when I was a really little kid and I started rapping, I was like 8 years old. That's a whole lore story in itself. And so I had it. At first, people would call me Soul Man, right? Because it was a movie in the 80s called Soul Man about this white guy who wants to get an HBCU-based scholarship. He wants to get a minority scholarship to a school, so he takes some kind of experimental drug that makes him black, and they call him Soul Man. And the character had really afro like I did as a kid, and so my cousin was like, "Yo, you look like Soul Man." I didn't find that funny. Later on, it was a show that used to come on called "Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?"
I remember that.
It was a villain called Vic the Slick, and he's like, "Yo, you look like Vic the Slick." I also didn't find that funny. But my favorite rapper at the time was Slick Rick. I used to make my dad play the children's story tape over and over again. And so I was like, but I could be like Slick Rick. I could be Slick Vic. I was in 6th grade. I went art class. I made a little medallion. I was like, yeah, I'm Slick Vic now. And then I moved to another school like a year later, and there was somebody there again. You know what I mean? People trying to get on you, trying to test you. They're like, yo, you look like your name is Habib the Beeb Low. I was like, you don't know me. Don't ever call me that. But I like the Low part. So I added the Low to the Slick Vic, and it was Slick Vic Low ever since.
Now, what grade was that Slick Vic Low? When did you merge them two together?
Oh, that was 7th grade.
Wow.
Grade.
Wow. Back. So that was deep. Yesterday I talked to a gentleman on the show. He said he put his name together in the 9th grade. So I like the fact that it's kind of a ongoing theme. A lot of us kind of got into music in grade school, middle school, high school, early high school area. So that's deep. Now, offline, offline, where did you grow up? I know you live in Baltimore now, but
yeah, I've been in Baltimore since 2001. Went to Coppin State, but
okay.
Originally from Pittsburgh area. Right outside of Pittsburgh, small town, Clairton, PA. The Midwest. It's a lot of small hood towns that was hit really hard when the steel industry went down in the late 70s. That just happened to parlay right into the crack cocaine era, and so it's a lot of Midwest small towns, small hoods where it's a similar story. So I'm from one of them kind of spots. We take a lot of pride in all of the things that we come out of.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a minute ago. I remember when Bethlehem Steel. I wasn't physically there, but I remember learning that Bethlehem Steel went down. So that was subsequently around the same time.
The steel mill where I'm from, Clairton, Pennsylvania, aka Seatown, that particular steel mill was one of the top 3, I believe, in the nation in producing steel. And so it was a booming industry. And then, you know, all of it gets snatched out. And so the bottom of that community gets snatched out. And then it just so happens to be that, you know, the gentrification goes the opposite way. And then you just have these communities where, you know, these the black community is what was left over. And then, you know, the drug trade, crack cocaine starts to happen right around the same time in the early 80s. So, you know, you say, you know, we wasn't going to necessarily get into the politics, but, you know, just the
no, you can talk your talk. If it's part of the origin story, you got to really put it together.
So out of that same, you know, that same era, you know, of what was happening with the crack cocaine epidemic and all around the East Coast, especially in the Bronx, New York, you know, hip hop is born out of that same circumstance. And so, you know, it's a lot of the same in other places where hip hop started to spread as well. And so you have this new art form that comes up where, you know, young black African Americans are finding a way to express what's happening in the world and to tell their story in a way that they wouldn't have been able to without the platform that hip hop grew into.
Yeah, that's deep right there. I'm glad you actually brought that up. And you know, although a lot of people are young, a part of the younger generation, I don't believe that they really actually understand the ramifications of that era. Had that not happened, I don't know if hip hop would be what it is today without that inception, without that story built into it.
Seeing how, you know, you look at the history of black people in America and the experiences of the black experience, there's usually some kind of catalyst that leads to a necessity for people to express what they're going through, and it leads to the innovation of a new art form. You look at jazz coming after the Reconstruction era, after, you know, the abolition of chattel slavery, and you had entire communities where, you know, the education system wasn't necessarily available to black people, but you had black people in the South and in New Orleans able to get their hands on old instruments, and jazz is created. And then you have, you know, the Bronx and, you know, the early 1970s and extreme poverty and, you know, people burning down buildings to try to collect the insurance, and then just people with nowhere to live and living in these abandoned spaces. And then in the midst of all that, you know, somebody plugs in some turntables and has a block party, and then you start to see the early origins of hip hop being created. So a lot of art, you know, whether it's from a mass movement or from, you know, just a small collective of people, a lot of art comes out of some of the toughest circumstances. You know, art begins to be the coal that becomes the diamond later on because of whatever pressure is going on in people's lives.
No, that's real. And I really like what you said, that the catalyst. I figured this was going to be a good interview. Listen, y'all, like and subscribe to the channel. I got my man Slick Vic Low here. If you're new to the channel, you know, just log in, hit that bell icon. Later on, I'll make sure I have Slick Vic Low's information so that you can get the lowdown on following him, my man Slangston Hughes. Listen, I wonder if you, and I asked this before, some people can, some people can't. Do you remember your first ever rap?
It's wild that I do, right? So
yeah,
talking about that same, or when I mentioned, I was like, you know, there's a whole origin story to that. So my first rap, I was 8 years old, right? This is, you know, growing up Pittsburgh area, Western Pennsylvania, and it's weird. It's almost impossible to tell the story without telling the other part of the story. So I'll just tell the full lore, right? So
yeah, go for it.
I grew up in what many would consider a cult, right? A bit of a hodgepodge of kind of Hebrew Israelite, Mormon / Amish practices, like
really.
So Cedar Joseph Restoration Academy, we learned a lot of things at a young age that, you know, in public school you're just not exposed to about Black people, about the history of who we really are. And so, you know, hip hop was a part of it. You know, like, you know, I had an aunt who used to rhyme about the stuff that we used to talk about at the school. And so one day we put together an event, right? There was a rapper from the area who had gone national with a hit single called Ghetto Soundcheck by the name of Tuffy Tuff. Had pop reggae fusion style, and he came up to the school one day and built with us for a long time, and he was like, yo, I'm coming back this weekend, I'm going to perform. And so we was having this whole big show. People couldn't believe it. Like, we had flyers we printed up like Tuffy Tuff is coming here. People were like, what? Tuffy Tuff is coming? Long story short, it got to the day of the event, line around the block, Tuffy Tuff never showed up. Nobody knows whatever happened with Tuffy Tuff. But we earlier in the day though, we had a rap contest that anybody could enter. My older cousin was really known from rhyming around the neighborhood. He entered the contest. I used to try to follow him around, do what he was doing. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it too. I got on stage, was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I stood there and just stared at what seemed like forever. It was like 7 minutes or something. I was just standing there staring at the crowd, and I just started freestyling. And I said, every single day a Black man gets arrested for a stupid thing like stealing when a white man might have tons of drugs on him. They put him in a hospital, say something's wrong with him. If you think that's right, then what's your life's function? Why? Because it's not justice. And I put my little fist in there and I won $15. And so like that was the beginning. Like, it was literally day one of rhyming, and in one form or another, like it's been with me ever since, from going to the poetry realm to doing multiple musical projects over the years to fast forward to now working with DBL Records. Like, so it goes all the way back, and you know, it's been an integral part of who I am for a long time.
Speaking of, I like what you said there, and just the fact that Tuffy Tuff disappeared without coming back for the bag. That's crazy. But
when it's no bag, that's probably why I didn't come back. You know,
right.
You know, on the strength, and you know.
Yeah, that could have solidified his career too. That whole little situation could have been documented as him really being that guy. You know, you never know what would have happened if he'd have showed up. But nonetheless, I know you mentioned Tuffy Tuff. Who would you say are some artists that help shape or pioneer your sound, if any?
Absolutely. So fast forward a few years later, I'm in 6th grade, you know, still rhyming here and there, you know, beating on the table outside, we used to record it right into the boombox. And I'm watching Rap City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my daily ritual, come home, watch Rap City, and I see a video of what looks like ninjas rapping. And
yeah.
Doing a song, and the song goes, Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind is completely blown. I'm like, what is this? And so I remember I go to school the next day, people are like, yo, you see that new Bone Thugs and Harmony video? I'm like, what? Whatever. Have you seen the Wu-Tang Clan? Like, they're like rapping ninjas, yo. And so like Wu-Tang Clan, like seeing that, it was completely outside the box for its time, like nothing else that was happening. That completely changed my entire world. I was just like, oh wow, like whatever that is, that's what I want to be. And so like definitely Wu-Tang Clan, very early influence on my own personal style and approach. Rakim, probably my all-time favorite MC as a soloist, you know, the God. Nas. And then I have like, I think every MC has those MCs who are like their personal, you know, favorites, the ones who like really shape and influence their own approach, where it's like these that when I hear them, it makes me have to stop and be like, all right, am I really doing something? Nah, like, and so for me, those MCs are MCs like Pharoah Monch, Raz Kaz, it's a lot, but those are like the ones that Elzhi, like those are the ones when I listen to them, I'm like, you know, it makes me go back to and make sure that I'm on point. Those are just, you know, to name a few that have always been big influences for me stylistically.
being from a part of PA, what's your thoughts on my man Black Thought?
That's another one. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely on that list. Especially, in recent years, like the solo stuff he's done outside of the Roots. He just, ever since that Sway freestyle, he just kind of opened up a whole new audience to what he does, and a whole new audience to lyricism, like freestyles like that, Black Thought, and then the battle rap arena.
Mm-hmm.
And the Loaded Lux. I feel like that became the safe haven for lyricism in a lot of ways, where people were able to get exposed to lyricism in a way that in the mainstream they often aren't anymore. I think we're in a new day now, apparently, with that, because of the Kendrick situation that happened, where now people seem to be listening to lyricism a lot closer again, and that's a beautiful thing. But I think prior to that, like battle rap and freestyle stuff like that is where people went to really experience that essence of MCing again, and Black Thought was really at the forefront of that in these last couple of years. So I've always been a fan of the Roots and Black Thought, but that recent activity has really been a big boost to the culture. So yeah, Black Thought is definitely one of those MCs. Now, people Philly and Pittsburgh, people who aren't from Pennsylvania might not realize that those two cities are extremely far apart.
Yeah, they are.
Big. So it's not like DC and Baltimore, but Philly's always
What's that, like 3-hour drive between the two?
About 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah. I knew it wasn't close.
Yeah, it's like opposite ends of the state.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So you talked about growing up, how you got your name, that's Slick Vic Low, and it's funny because it sounded like your name had like some German influence to it when you said it.
It is. Yeah, that's interesting. Sounds like a German novelist or something.
Right. I thought you was ready to say some Full Metal Alchemist. Matter of fact, do you watch anime, right?
Not only do I watch anime, I put out a mixtape last year called Beats, Rhymes, and Anime, where each song was named after one of my favorite animes. And I paired each song with a different one of my favorite DJ Premier beats. And
wow.
One of my favorite animes, and track 7 is Full Metal Alchemist, and it's
so you knew exactly where I was going with that connection. So for those who are anime buffs or fans of manga, give me maybe your top 5 anime.
So Full Metal Alchemist is one. Death Note was number 1 for a very long time. And I feel like that Attack on Titan recently replaced Death Note at the top.
Wow.
One that I really loved, it was like a limited series that is not as known, that I think is excellent writing and everything, is Code Geass.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm real big on Code Geass. That's one from like back in the earlier 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I throw in there, I'll say Soul Eater. Yeah, bangs with Soul Eater.
Soul Eater was dope. Soul Eater. That's what I like to hear, man. So you got nice. For me, right now I'm watching some of the newer stuff, but Inuyasha at one point was one of my top animes.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Well, who else did I like? Gurren Lagann.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a little mech show.
Yeah.
That I got into. I like Bleach. Bleach is more mainstream, but I like Bleach. Flame of Recca is probably a little underrated. You heard of Flame of Recca?
I've heard of it, never seen it.
Yeah, and there's Kaze no Stigma. That I will put them in the same category. Black Clover.
Going there, definitely top 5 word is Blue Exorcist.
You just took the words. I need to pick back up on that. With that Kyoto saga, and then I heard they was fighting the Illuminati on one season. Yeah. I need to get
a shorter run one too, but one of the dope.
Yeah, that's actually I liked Assassination Classroom.
Yeah, I did like Assassination Classroom. I watched that joint pretty much straight through.
Yeah. So
what, and one that how dare I forget, it's easily in my top 2, top 3 is Samurai Champloo. Like with
Fire.
the influence in there, like Samurai Champloo was one of the earlier animes that had me just like, wow, this is unbelievable.
Yo, yeah, Samurai Champloo and Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. I like a lot of the ninja stuff too. Like, what's it, Ninja Scroll?
Scroll. The movie, that's one of the ones I named the song after as well. That Blue Exorcist, Samurai. Those are all titles on the mixtape.
What about Berserk? Berserk
was really good, right? And it had like the film joint. That's what kind of got introduced to it. Yeah, Berserk. I never watched the final movie, but Berserk was ill. So like a lot of those joints, especially ones from that era. Shout out to my sister, like she's like, I'm a novelist compared to her. Like I'm a
novice, yeah.
She's a super anime head. Like she has like a little death note that at any time she has a list of up to 100. Like she's
right.
Yeah, so like like she's a lot of the stuff that, especially the newer stuff, I get put on, like Vinland Saga and stuff like that.
Yo, my goodness, that was fire.
Yeah, I seen a couple of those. She showed me.
Why is that? That's actually in my like top 15. That and Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, it seems like you have like an eclectic approach. You got your hip hop arsenal. You got some heavy hitters on the anime tip. We didn't go in. Obviously, DJ Premier, one of your top producers.
Yeah.
Who else would you say is relevant to you?
Man, Pete Rock, probably one arguably my all-time favorite producer. Jay Dilla.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Madlib. You know, that's kind of like for me, if you talk about the boom bap Mount Rushmore, got Premier, Pete Rock, Dilla, Madlib, Ninth Wonder. I'm a huge Ninth Wonder fan since the very beginning. Little Brother and the God Stepson remix. Like, I'm pretty much like a Ninth Wonder scholar. You know what I mean? And then somebody from those those early years of the development of the sound that came to be boom bap that people often sleep on is Large Professor. A lot of people don't know Professor. So the MPC 2000 was like the beat machine that basically led to a lot of that early boom bap sound that got developed and became what we know as boom bap. And so this is like 91 through 94 basically. But Large Professor was one of the first people in New York to have the MPC 3000, and he actually taught Pete Rock and Premier like the insides of how to use it for real. And people don't know that Large Professor, all the way back to when he was like a teenager, he was like in the studio when Eric B and Rakim was making their first album, and was even like involved in some of those early tracks. But he was so young at the time, he wasn't like getting a credit or anything, but talking about the origins of the sound that we call, the boom bap, the golden era of true school hip hop, if you will, that 90s sound. A lot of people don't know that, Large Professor is one of the architects of that as well.
No, that's actually good information. Especially for hip hop enthusiasts, people that really care about the culture, they care about the history. I'm glad I was able to run into you because you look like a person that's well learned in this particular area. I would say for me, just growing up listening to music, I was born in '87, so my first introduction, just being from Baltimore to the hip hop scene, obviously. A lot of people like 3 6 Mafia here. They beat selection then was probably, if you had the Mercury Marauder or Caprice Classic, that's what you would hear coming up.
I had to know.
Yeah, so, but for me, rest in peace to my man Chris, one of my best friends when I was probably in like middle school or like 6th grade, 7th grade. His cousin introduced me to Money, Power, Respect, the cassette tape. And subsequently, We Are the Streets by the Lox. And when I heard that production, And I want to say a lot of them beats going into Ride or Die Volume 1 was Swiss beats. And I'm like, these hard. And, you know, that's what woke me up. And that's what got me into listening to music. So a lot of the grittier dudes.
That second DMX album. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
the whole world.
DMX in my top.
Who X is working with.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people don't know that, you know, I only met him the one time at a family reunion when I was like 6 or 7, but Swiss Beats is actually my cousin.
Oh, that's interesting. And if you said that, looking at you and then looking at him, y'all definitely probably got a common ancestor somewhere. I could totally believe that. I could totally believe that. And Swiss Beats at that time for me, that Ride or Die Volume 2 was I played that a million times. That We Are the Streets, Ride or Die Volume 1, just Flesh of My Flesh, that DMX. Granted, I know all those beats probably wasn't all Swiss, but just that era.
Like before Christmas or something. Like, I remember I got it. Like,
yeah, that was my era. Them, Beanie Siegel, I just like the way they put their bars together, you know, just they pen. And you know, early on when I first heard Cassidy and the Lost in the Family, I had remembered him when he first came out with Swiss. I'm like, yo, he beast on the battle rap. Obviously at the time.
The mixtape era, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was the one.
Like battle rap era, like those early Smack cassette battles on HS and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That was when I was really into watching on the Smack DVDs, and that was my thing. So
Murder Mook.
Yeah, J Mills, Murder Mook, because J Mills kind of started it big. Am I trouble or what? And then it went to Murder Mook, and Murder Mook, then Party Artie. It transitioned.
That's becoming so popular in the underground that you saw the major outlets trying to copy it with, you know, 106 and Park doing
right.
Fridays. Then before that, MTV used to do battles like every Thursday or something like that.
Right. Remember the Fight Club? They used to stand in front of the pool table.
Fight Club.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I watched Remy go out there and put in some work. I guess it was Lady Luck or so. I can't remember who it was. It's been a while. But
D&M.
Yeah. That was my error. And then subsequently, early like mid 2000, like 2002 to 2005, I ran into Reed Dollars, and then I started running to Philly, and it was the Big Star DVDs. Too Raw for the Streets.
Man, they was on Reed Dollars heavy, man. Reed Dollars. I was like, yeah, he's pretty good. They was all over Reed Dollars.
So when you grew up in, knowing that Pittsburgh is further from Philly than most people would like to acknowledge, did y'all get a lot of music from Philly anyway?
Just the regular stuff that everybody else was getting exposed to at the time, like the State Property, the Beanie Siegel, all of that stuff. But in terms of like, I was listening to the Roots like way before any of that stuff came out. A lot of people don't. Siegel's first verse was on the Roots album, Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he's listed, but like that's Beanie Siegel on that album because he's from Philly. But
and Eve got one of her first joints on there too.
Right, she was on that same album. And she was the Eve of Destruction then. And I think it's listed on the first press of the first album credit. So that was my Philly exposure early on, was the Roots and stuff like that. Dice Raw, even the Last Emperor, who did the classic Wars. And then later on, the rock associated Philly people came out. But yeah, that distance, a lot of that stuff I was discovering after I already moved here when it comes to like the Beanie Siegel on the Freeway and stuff, because that's early 2000s.
Right.
More about it.
That's deep, and it's just funny because you made that connection between Baltimore and DC. We roughly, if there was no traffic, it would be a 45 minute straight shot. but the traffic give you an hour 20 minutes depending on when you traveling. So that's it's funny because we're way closer than you are, you know, in that aspect. You know, I never really would have kind of thought that. You think it's they both in
Yeah.
PA, so boom. Like, so
For sure.
Pittsburgh also has what? Wiz Khalifa, Taylor Gang, Johnny
Yeah.
Giuliano.
I got a funny Wiz Khalifa story very early on. So I was starting to see in the there was a lot of underground hip hop sites that a lot of used to frequent a lot of stuff. I used to submit and have some
Mhm.
back in like 2008, 2009, and we started to see some of the Wiz Khalifa mixtapes and stuff surfacing. And then even on like the one time I was, back home and on the local news, they was talking about young promising rapper Wiz Khalifa from, went to Peabody High School. That's a Pittsburgh City League school. So we were hearing
Mhm.
early on, and then Black and Yellow comes out, and all of a sudden, like, boom. And so not too long after that video came out, me and my cousins actually saw him leaving Big Lot.
Oh
And
yeah.
he had a mattress strapped to the top of that same yellow car from the Black and Yellow video. And we like, yo, what are you doing with that bid, Wiz Khalifa? And he's just like, I'm trying to buy this for my mother, but I can't get it to stay up here. And so and then, not too long after that, he links up with Snoop and, is doing the movies and all of that. And the next thing, the whole world knows about Wiz Khalifa.
Mhm.
Drops, but yeah, in Pittsburgh, we were aware. Same thing happened with Mac Miller. You was
Yeah.
hearing early on his stuff and stuff was surfacing. So, the Pittsburgh MCs that rose through the cracks, definitely represented.
Speaking of industry artists, and just in general, what lessons do you have about just what the music industry is? Like, what can you tell me about that from your perspective?
That's interesting. I think that for me, when it comes to hip hop was created by the people, right? And
Mhm.
like anything else that Black people have created in this country that is deemed of value, it gets commodified by people who are not us,
Mhm.
and turned into a particular package and sold back to us. And there's a particular KRS-One song on the album called Sneak Attack, where he talks about how if artists of his generation have realized earlier how much the record labels really don't hold the real power until we give it to them, there would have been a larger amount of independent hip hop happening much earlier, probably.
Mhm.
And that the internet made independent hip hop from this to infinity. And so there are so many other ways now. Now that we're in the streaming era, it's a whole different dinosaur that's happening, a whole different monster. But I think hip hop is one of those things that the people created and turned it into something that could get people out of poverty. But I think that the way to really sustain it and the real culture of it is to keep ownership of what we created. Because we see time and time again when they get their hands on ownership of what we create, they bastardize it. They turn it into a weapon against our people. A lot of people will talk about, some people want to, say it's a conspiracy theory. Some people tell you, I was there, I saw it happen. With the way that the CIA infiltrated the industry and put agents in key positions at record labels and intentionally put out only one kind of rap music for a series of years in order to change the messaging that was getting into the minds of young Black children. A little bit too much Public Enemy and Native Tongues was happening in a certain era in the early 90s. And it's like, this could have the same effect as, the Black revolutionary movement that was happening in the 60s. This could have a similar effect as, radical Black leaders like your Malcolm X's and your Stokely Carmichaels coming through, or the later things that King was talking about. And so they feared hip hop as being a tool for that. And so it was like, we got to get a hold of this and we got to change the messaging to make it unbalanced. And so that people will tell you that happened. But I think the more that we can control our own art, the more we can control the message that we put out there, the better that, you know, like hip hop has the ability to be a tool for something positive and to be a constructive platform to build Black people up. You know, the acronym that Karis created that I even I mentioned on a recent single of the acronym for hip hop, you know, higher infinite power, healing oppressed people. You know, like that's at its core what hip hop should be. And but when it's not that, the enemy easily can weaponize it against us. You know, that's why I think, you know, in spite of all of the, you know, hoopla with, you know, the Kendrick and Aubrey beef, you know, the beautiful thing that came out of it was Kendrick using that opportunity as a platform to bring together people in his city, and to unite the people. And so, like, that's the power that hip hop has always had. And the only way we can keep it that way is if we keep it in our own hands. So the industry, as Kara says in the song, record labels ain't got nothing for us. You know what I mean? Like, and even his recent comments on like the 50th celebration stuff that happened at like the Grammys and stuff, he's just like, that's not hip hop. That's them.
Right.
They always do, trying to get a hold of hip hop and use it. But hip hop is the real hip hop has always remained with the people.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I feel like we got some good snippets that we can make out of the stuff you're saying. I like you dropping gems. Now getting back into you a little bit, where do you draw your creativity from? Like, what's something? How do you get inspired? Do you see what's going on around you, or are you more introspective? Like, walk me through your creative process and how you freestyling? Like, let's talk about it.
So all the different personalities have different approaches, you know, and draw from different things, but it's definitely, you know, being inspired by those who came before. And then also art is very therapeutic for me. So especially, you know, in recent life, you know, art has been the oxygen that keeps air flowing for me. When it comes to all of the other things, could be very suffocating. Art has been the oxygen. And, you know, especially linking up with, you know, my DBL brothers and sisters, like that has been a blessing and something that I really think was in alignment, you know, with the divine timing of it. And even this album, you know, this 1990 Now album, something we didn't even realize was just like how the songs are numerically created in a way where it lines up with supreme mathematics. How it was basically like a 1 through 10 of what each number represents each day, and how those songs line up, and even the people on them. And it's like some of it is kind of enshrouded still now, but when it comes out and we start to really like expose more of it, like people will see like, wow, this is like, even the structure of the album is really deep. So for me, you know, it's always been a really not just therapeutic, but really spiritual process. You know what I mean? Like creativity is absolutely for me the way that, you know, I tap into, you know, my higher self and a power that is beyond just me.
So I like where you went there. You mentioned supreme mathematics, and on the spiritual side, are you a 5%er?
I wouldn't identify as one myself necessarily, but definitely something I've studied. You know, coming up in the academy, you know, the school that I grew up in for a large portion, we were exposed to a lot of things. You know what I mean? A lot of information and knowledge that informed my journey later on. And so, like a lot of people, whenever I came across Wu-Tang Clan, and know how much hip hop and how much them and specifically how much they were influenced by the Nation of Gods and Earth and 5% ideology. You know, it was hip hop who led me to that information, like a lot of people. But when I came in contact with a lot of it, so much of it wasn't brand new because of what I learned growing up in the school. And so, especially, you know, Killer Priest, who was in, you know, one of the side groups the RZA started in Wu-Tang with Sons of Man, and Killer Priest came out of that. And he specifically was rhyming about a lot of information that is related to Black Hebrew Israelites and those origins of the history of Black people as it applies to biblical history. And so those things combined with, the 5% information and ideology, like definitely informed like the things that I learned about. So it informed the things that I wrote about.
Okay, I like what you said there. And you mentioned Wu-Tang a lot. Is DBL like, do you feel like, before we get to that question, how did you get in? How did you meet the squad? How did you become part of DBL? Were you around since its inception?
No, not since the inception, but somebody who came in very soon after, who's a really close friend of mine, my brother Black Chakra.
Okay, yeah. Shout out to Black Chakra.
So his origin story is connected to mine in Baltimore in that he was in high school when he saw me performing somewhere. And funny enough, he was just like, you can do poetry like a Wu-Tang member? Like, is what he saw when he saw me. Like, there's someone doing poetry in like a hip hop style, a Wu-Tang type style. And so that kind of led him into his journey in poetry. And then, we were part of various Baltimore slam teams that won national championships and stuff over the last decade. And so around 2017, I think, is when he linked up with DBL and he met Skills, like 2018, 19, when DBL started. And so when the first DBL album came out, and Chakra put me up on it, and I'm listening to Skills, Myclopedia, and I'm like, yo, who are these young dudes that are rhyming like the way we rhyme? and so that I found out about DBL, and then later on I met Skills, and then first day I went through Skills to record a song with, shout out to Prince Mac, who's kind of like the hip hop generation after Skills and them, because he's 21 and he was 20 at the time, and I seen him. And I'm just like, and I'm there with another brethren, Kareem Ali, and I'm like, yo, that kid raps like us. And so there's this lineage of people who continue in the tradition of that true hip hop, that true school hip hop style and philosophy. And so DBL is a safe haven of that, basically, torch carriers of that shit. And so we do get the Wu-Tang comparison a lot, because one, it's a lot of us, and two, we do that boom bap style and that really lyrical style. Also, it's kind of similar to Boot Camp in that there are side of it, like Liberated Scarfaces is a 2-person group made up of Skills and Black Chakra that is with myself, Skills, and Prince Mac. We make up a super group called The Usual Suspects. And so there's factions, inside DBL. You got Lou Boogie and the Dummies, you got Myclopedia. And so it's like almost like a Voltron kind of thing, where it's like different robots can be formed out of the one, and then the one comes together and creates the whole thing when it's DBL.
I like what you said. So that's the Lou Boogie and the Dummies. I like him too. He more like on the grittier side. Like, he put me into he got more of that street feel, but he still got the essence in him.
Like ODB.
Yeah. I like him a lot. And the other young man, he was the one who had, I think it was his girlfriend who was on the hook with him. Okay, cool. I would like to get a chance.
Daughter.
Say it again.
She's also my daughter, Moonchild.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my daughter. And so I actually one can say or not say exactly what the details are, but I kind of played Cupid a little bit with how they linked up. So because I met him. And then not too long after that, me and my daughter curated a show together that, I was like, yeah, Prince Mac should be in the show. He's pretty cool. And then like, that was kind of the day that I kind of figured out like, oh, you like that guy. And I was like, okay, I co-sign. And then I started orchestrating, but,
right.
It's been about a year. It's been about a year since all of that happened. They just celebrated their 1-year anniversary like a month or so ago.
No, that's what's up, and it's cool just being a parent. As a parent of all, I got 5 daughters. As being a parent is like you almost betrothed You put them together, so you can't be mad at that when you know you watching them grow, but at the same time, it's like you finding somebody that's like a kindred spirit in terms of how he put together his music, like.
And usually you wouldn't try to do that because it's like that's usually when they be like, okay, never mind.
Right.
But when I found out that was already the case, and he was kind of oblivious to it, I'm like, all right, I need to put a little nudge here because I co-signed where kind of inside information. The previous two, I did not co-sign. I did not co-sign the previous two individuals of the male persuasion that she was interested in and that she was involved with. I was just like not feeling these brothers. And so with him, I was like, oh no, this could be a good thing. So let me encourage.
Wait, how old are you actually? Like,
I'm 42.
Okay. So my wife would be 42 this year. I'm 37. All right, that's a bet. I was about to say you making it seem like you way. I was like, I was like thinking I was way off with the age variance, but okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Baseball though is too, because I have 5 as well, but they're all adopted as well.
Okay.
So it's a lot of chosen family in the synergy of the village.
That's what I like to hear, and on that's deep, and I'm glad you added that that input. We talked about kind of your origin story, this kind of the inception of how you got from PA, subsequently from Pittsburgh to Baltimore, meeting Black Chakra, who's also part of DBL, bringing you into the fold, just kind of your hip hop experience of how you got the name Slick Vic Low. And then we talked about anime, which is near and dear to me because, I'm big on anime, but I didn't ask movie wise. What if you had to name maybe 3 to 5 movies that you felt like something that intrinsically, if people knew those movies, they would kind of get to know who you are. What movies would you say, if any, that you're a fan of?
That are particularly like influential from a hip hop standpoint, or just in general?
Just in, it could be both.
So it's a lot of movies. Like I always say about films is that like I have about 100 films on my top 10 list.
Really?
So
I feel that way about a couple of things too.
Yeah, it's really hard to whittle it down. Chakra, who's a huge movie buff, he's actually sat down and done it on a number of times. Like, okay, these are the top whatever, how many you want to try to 50 to 100. And so it's hard to say, but movies that I think are really influential. And if I was to give you 3 from completely different genres, right?
Okay.
When it comes to fandoms, I'm a huge Trekkie. I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Okay.
Chakra will tell you there's times when like a Star Trek episode will be on. He'll call up, just let me hear the audio, and he knows I'm going to be able to tell him within 5 seconds what episode it is, what the title is, what the plot is. Right here in arm's reach, I actually have, this is my cousin. Shout out to my cousin Daniel, who got me this on Christmas a few years ago. This is Captain Benjamin Lafayette Sisko from Deep Space Nine, which is my favorite Star Trek series. Season 1 Sisko, super rare, never comes out the box. So in that realm, Star Trek, a movie that is the gold standard of any Star Trek movie, but of sci-fi from the 80s period, came out years before, a few weeks before I was even born, is Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. So boom, that definitely gets a spot. If we were to flip genres and go somewhere completely different, there's a movie called About Time that is just a beautiful piece of cinema and writing. I won't even give it away, but if you are a young man who lost his father as a young man, that movie, you're not going to be able to get through it with dry eyes. You're just not. The guy in it, this is before he was in it, but he was in Star Wars. He played like the angry redhead general or whatever, and like the he's like the main character in this movie About Time, which is just crazy. And then if I was to a third one from a completely different cinematic realm, I would say in terms of hip hop influence stuff, I would say I would go back to a film that is actually a documentary that inspired some of the early hip hop movies that were scripted. So a lot of people know Beat Street. A lot of people know Wild Style, which were like, for the most, Wild Style was kind of a hodgepodge of a documentary and a scripted film. But what inspired them and what really film companies were like, oh, we need to do something like that that's scripted and put it out. There's a documentary called Style Wars. When this is like very early 80s, late, this is like 81, I think this came out, and they're following around different graffiti writers, break dancers, some MCs, and you see them. It's a chronicling of some of those earlier years of hip hop becoming known outside of just New York. And somebody documented it in this documentary called Style Wars. So if we go sci-fi, pseudo sci-fi, heartfelt, and then we go documentary, like those are three that I would cite as having like major impact on me. But when you talk about films, it's
you got a nice list probably behind the scenes. So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, this is a question that I try to ask a lot of the artists. In terms of, let's say, Lord's will, you get to make it another 50 years and you can look back at your legacy. What would you want people to know about your legacy if they were to pull up the Slick Vic Low catalog? What would you want people to get from your music?
Speaking of Wu-Tang, we had something that the RZA said a long time ago that I think was part of the Wu-Tang manual. I think it was in that he wrote, footprints. You know what I mean? How many footprints behind that are strong enough to stay visible after you're gone? And for me, I take it a step further in that how many footprints can you not just put down yourself, but can also help others put their footprints down too. And so I kind of aspire to be, similar to, there's a poet out of Detroit from the Black Arts Movement era, 60s and 70s, by the name of Dudley Randall, right? A lot of people know about Dudley Randall, but a lot of the people who people do know, they know of them because Dudley Randall published them in his company, and which was one of the first, if not the first, all Black publishing company. Hakeem Badabuti was involved, Sonia Sanchez, Gwendolyn Brooks. These are poets who had opportunities to publish on major white labels, but when they saw what Dudley Randall was building, they went and published work with him instead. So more people know about Dudley Randall now, because if you ever watch the show This Is Us, so the what's his name, who was in Black Panther, his father carry around this book of Dudley Randall poems in the show. And so that's how a lot more people found. But Dudley Randall was someone who is really inspirational, because he made it his mission to not just make sure that his legacy was preserved, but the legacy of others around him was also preserved. So it wasn't just about his footprints; it was about the footprints of others as well. And so that's I kind of aspire to be in that vein, in that, it's not just me. I mean, it's about the collective. It's about creating opportunities for others to pass the torch to them as well, because we're here for a limited amount of time, but after us, who's going to come next? And so I think it's an important part of the work to make that who comes next possible. And so that, when people look back, they're not just saying, oh, wow, look at those Slick Vic or Slangston Hughes footprints, but look at those footprints and look at all the footprints that he brought with him.
Yeah, I like that right there. That's, I like where you was coming from. Very, thought-provoking, and even being able to have the footprints of the others around you. I really like that a lot. So, we gotta get a part 2 going after the release of your project. Tell us about your project one more time. Give us our shout outs and where they can find all of your music and stuff.
And in just 2 days, 1990 now, it drops. DBL Records, produced entirely by D Skills Harris, featuring Prince Mac, who's a really integral part of the album. He's on 4 songs, and he also is the mastermind along with me behind a lot of the skits. Man, I describe it as a Baltimore boom bap manifesto, in that it's now, because we pay homage to the foundation, the traditions of that boom bap golden era that we come up and we know and love, and that inspired and influenced so many of us. But also it's 1990 now, because we're bringing the perspective and the artistry that represents that same tradition right now, and specifically from Baltimore. And so yeah, it's a really I think we really put together a unique piece of work. It has other DBL members on it, like Lou Boogie, Michaelpedia, Black Chakra, my daughter Moonchild, of course Prince Mac. Skills Rhymes on it as well as produces the whole thing. Then we got every song I heard a specific Baltimore MC who I'm like, yo, that they're a perfect fit. So we got Jammer One, who's an incredible MC from here, who's been doing it in Baltimore even way before me. He comes up out of a collective called New Testament that was here in the 90s, making major moves, and then he grew out of that, and his discography is one of the greatest, period. So we got Jammer One, You'll Never Know, someone from here by way of California, from here, grew up in LA and other places, because came up with his father in the service, and then he came here in like 2010 and really started to build his catalog. And so shout out to You'll Never Know. The Scholars, we talk about that time period of when I first got here and really discovered a lot of people in the arts community here. The Scholars was some pivotal young brothers who was really, in those early years of my journey, was a part of a lot of what we was doing in places like the original 5 Seasons, the Spitfire Monday.
Yeah. Shout out to the original 5 Seasons.
Yeah, they were part of that whole I would call it hip hop, Baltimore hip hop ministry that was going down at the time. And there's some of Life the Oracle. Shout out Life the Oracle, who's on the album.
Shout out to Life the Oracle.
A lot recently. So a lot of the singles that have been dropping, people have been seeing. There's the one with Jammer One on it, 1990 Now, the title track. Me and Life's joint, Us, On and On, is one of the singles. Microphone Warlocks, one of the ones we did at the Portal that night, that has Prince Mac and Moonchild on it. And shout out to Naruto for Fuji. I would call like the major push single that just dropped last week that we also performed that night, Alien Moon Alchemy. Naru, the 4 Fuji's on that. And so yeah, I think it's a really dope album that has some of the finest who represent that like-minded school of hip-hop thought that I come from. We kind of all united for this cause that is this Baltimore boom bap manifesto, I'll call it. Yeah.
Listen, man, I appreciate you for getting on the show. Shout outs to everybody that you got some names that I gotta really go back and check out some of their bodies of work. I'm looking forward to hearing that project again. I'll probably do a listening show.
You're also Kareem Ali. Shout out Kareem Ali.
Shout out to Kareem Ali.
Closes out the album. And when we talk about catalogs in Baltimore, like me and him, we have a podcast together as well, called Are You Serious? We talk about hip hop, mostly sports and other things in the culture. But if you look back and you Google Kareem Ali on YouTube, you will see one of the greatest video catalogs of hip hop that has come out of this area. Like his footprint in creating amazing videos for songs, amazing visuals, along with a brother by the name of Keston who directed them. Like before people was really doing their own videos that heavy, like he was really blazing the way with that, with some really fire music and fire projects. So yeah, I mean, you can find the singles that are coming out from the album on all the streaming platforms. Just put in Slick Vic Low. You know what I mean? Slick Vic Low, the same way it's spelled here. And there's about 4 singles that have already dropped off the album, and then my other personality that we've mentioned, Lyrical Leviathan, has been dropping singles on all of the streaming platforms as well. And that's part 2, because he not only has a project coming, he has a trilogy of projects coming that are steeped in Afrofuturism and anime and all kind of other cool shit.
Okay, I'm looking for it. When we get off, definitely inbox me a list of those links, so that I can start putting them out. People need to get a hold of this material, you know. So, listen, man, we're gonna wrap it up here. Bring us home. Give me the outro, man. Like and subscribe to the channel, y'all. Give me an outro.
Look, Slick Vic Low. Everywhere you can find me on all the streaming platforms, and Artist Alien 777. Artist Alien 777 on Instagram. That's where you can really keep up with everything that's going on, everything that's been dropping, the visuals and stuff that are coming out and have been coming out. The promo for the album is on that page. Shout out to Kai from Capsule Culture. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Follow a kid named Kai 95, because we got some amazing shit on the way. And shout out to Capture Culture. If you know about Capture Culture, you know Kai be everywhere with the camera, literally capturing the culture. And so, you know, he filmed and edited the album promo. And, you know, Rap Andy Kaufman, Killed I Noise They Talking. Rappers could preserve their sets inside a coffin. Enough of them get shot anyway. Self-fulfilling prophecies wrapped inside, all for wordplay. Show me a major label, I'll show you a plantation. I want 40 dope balls in a mule. What the fuck is the hesitation? We rhyme medication, organic healing type to preserve life. Yeah.
Listen, it's Cannon with the camera. Talk with the Cannon. I had my man Slick Vic Low. Like and subscribe to the channel, and we out. Peace.